Is the novel coronavirus a biological weapon? I don't mean to peddle any conspiracy theories here, but I do think we need to take a look at what everybody is saying. And there are some Iranian officials claiming that it is a biological weapon. We've got some Russian officials claiming that it is as well, and they're pointing the finger at the United States. Israel, some Israeli officials are also saying, yeah, it might be a biological weapon. They're claiming it was China that unleashed it. China hasn't really said anything, and the United States is saying, no, that is a hoax. So let's go ahead and break this down a bit. The former Iranian president came out claiming that the novel coronavirus was a biological weapon man-made in a lab. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, sorry about that, this is his tweet. He says, "It is clear to the world that the mutated coronavirus was produced in lab, manufactured by the warfare stockhouses of biological war belonging to world powers, and that it constitutes a threat on humanity more destructive than the other weapons that target humanity." So he also tweeted out a letter that he had sent to the Secretary General of the United Nations, and in it talks about how they believe that this was a biological man-made weapon that was unleashed in a lab, but he doesn't give any evidence of this. But we will see where there might be a little bit of, reason to be suspicious. Also, Javad Zarif, Iran's foreign minister, called the sanctions on Iran an act of medical terrorism. So he also at first made he insinuated that this could have been a biological weapon made in a lab, unleashed on the Iranian people. And then he's also come out saying that the sanctions on Iran that the United States has are an act of medical terrorism. Iran is not able to get all of the supplies that they need, and they're very much suffering because of the sanctions, and that is causing a lot of panic and a lot of death, and the virus is very strong in Iran. So this is what Javad Zarif says in his tweet. He says, "Real Donald Trump is maliciously tightening U.S. illegal sanctions with aim of draining Iran's resources needed in the fight against COVID-19 while our citizens are dying from it. The world can no longer be silent as U.S. economic terrorism is supplanted by its medical terrorism." So Iran has, the last count that I saw, which was I think yesterday, they've had about 429 deaths and over 10,000 people infected. And they've now asked the International Monetary Fund for $5 billion in emergency funding. And they're saying that the they haven't really placed blame on exactly who they think unleashed this virus on them, but they do feel like they had this unleashed on them, that this is not something that naturally would have occurred in Iran. And let's go ahead and take a look at a map to see what they're talking about, because it does look a little bit suspicious. When you look at the map, look at Iran here with 10,075 cases. Now, this was from yesterday, but look at the surrounding areas. Look at Afghanistan, 7 cases in Afghanistan. Look at over here in Iraq, 71 cases in Iraq. Look at the Arabian Peninsula. I mean, you've got 80, 74, 18, 45 in Saudi Arabia. You've got all of these small numbers surrounding Iran, but you've got 10,075 cases in Iran. And if you look at the countries in between Iran and China, look at here again. If you look at the map, you've got India with only 73. I mean, India is a densely populated country, and they only have 73, yet Iran has 10,075. Now, some people say, well, the reason why Iran got it was because China and Iran have a strong trade partnership. Well, China has a strong trade partnership with many countries around the world, and yet those countries are not seeing thousands and thousands of coronavirus cases, not like Iran. And Iran is having a really difficult time managing the virus. They've got a high death rate going on in Iran. So people are kind of raising an eyebrow and saying this looks a little bit suspicious. That, look at over here when you take a look at all of the areas surrounding China. China, of course, had over 80,000 cases. And you've got, look at these numbers, 49, 10, 39, 73, 1. Hardly any cases. And somehow the virus was able to jump from China all the way to Iran with 10,000 cases in Iran, and yet all the surrounding nations don't have nearly as many, including nations that have very strong trade agreements with China. The United States imports more from China than I think any other country, and yet we're not seeing 10,000 cases. I mean, not yet. We